Hi, this video is on the draft, how I think that there should be 50-50 representation in the draft, 50% men and 50% women, and also the 50-50% should both be in combat. You know, you're not going to have 50% of the men in the front lines, in the meat grinder, and then the women behind on the computers, maybe making TikTok movies of themselves, coordinating, you know, where tanks are. So basically, first I want to look at Ukraine today. Ukraine has a war. In Ukraine, the men are drafted. Now, all the men are going to fight and die in Ukraine in a very sketchy kind of war, how it began, and all of the women stay home. Now, when our draft rules were made 100 years ago, and basically when the international community made their draft laws about 100 years ago, most women were mothers and they stayed home and they didn't have jobs. 100 years ago, for every three men in a bachelor's degree class, there would be one woman. Today, 60% of the people in the bachelor's degree class are women and 40% of them are men. Why is that? It's because women do better in school than men today. And why, you ask? That's a topic for another video. But basically, in Ukraine, the men are fighting for Ukraine on the front line. And what are the women doing? They're staying home, they're making TikTok dances, they're on Instagram trying to build their, their virality, their social media presence. They're working, they're making money, they're doing the stock market. And the men are at the war fighting. And then when the men come home from the war, those of them who have lived, the women will have made a lot of money on TikTok and Instagram, and they will say to the men, no, you don't have a good enough job for us to marry, or you're too old now. So the men are fighting and the women stay home and they play TikTok. So if there were to be a military draft in the United States today, there are still so many old-fashioned people that say women shouldn't be drafted. Why? This isn't like Achilles and Ajax and Odysseus that have to wield swords and shields and overpower their opponent with strength. The modern kind of warfare, men still probably are better, but not by much. You know, there are many strong women today. That's what the feminist movement was all about. So I think that because you have a war, you need people fighting the war who have the most to lose. In today's America, 3 people make more money than the bottom 50% of the population. Those 3 people are men. If you take Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and the other man out of the equation, women are making more money in America than men today, or very, very close. The idea of a wage gender gap is obsolete. It does not exist anymore. In the past, maybe men would make more money because they had families to support. Maybe women made less money so that men could get a little bit more so that they could support a family. It's not like that anymore in America today. So the people who are fighting the war should be the people who have the most to lose. Now, in today's America, women have a lot to lose in case there was a war. So they should be drafted just like men are. What, are you going to pull all the men out of their mom's basements because they can't find a job because the place wanted to hire a woman instead? Are you gonna drag them out of their mom's basements for them to go fight, and then the women are gonna stay home and reap all the benefits of the war and the struggle? No, that doesn't make any sense. In ancient Rome, the people with the most to lose were the ones who fought in the front line. The patricians fought in the front, and the plebeians, they were in the back. They didn't do as much. So anybody who advocates that women shouldn't be drafted anymore, it's as though they live in the 1950s. So the jobs in the country are limited today, and sometimes the women get the jobs more easily because they're more docile and more tractable than men. And you're gonna tell me that we're gonna have men who are gonna want to fight to defend the country when maybe a female manager at their job fired them for like no reason, or told them to go home. Those kind of men aren't going to want to defend the country anymore. So women are doing great in society today. She has just as much to defend as the man, It's not the 1920s anymore, and it's just it's like it would be horrible to make all the men fight. So, how dare women lawmakers? They drag our country into a war, and then they expect the men to go fight it. That seems to me like a very vicious thing to do. Very schemy and subtle. The women, like if there was a woman lawmaker, or the Congress is like half women today, if they were to drag the American country into a war and then expect the men to fight it, that's crazy. The marriage rates are dropping, so it's not like the women today are mothers and wives. A lot of women, they don't become mothers until they're in their 30s. So if the marriage rate was higher and people were getting married more, then we'd say the women would stay home because they would have to take care of the kids, but that's not true today. If they stay home from war today, they'll be on TikTok dancing, on Instagram taking pictures, and it won't be fair to the men. So that's my idea of the draft.